Welcome to This Week Today. I'm your host, Skylar Gertensen. Let's get right into our topic today, which is the 2016 presidential elections, better known as, you know how people say it can't get worse? Well, they lied. 2016. In a matter of a few days, citizens around the United States will be heading to the polls to vote for our next president. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is the voter turnout for the 2012 presidential elections, which is, when you look at it, quite discouraging. In 2012, 122 million people voted for who would be president. However, in the same year, 132 million people voted for the winner of American Idol. Apparently, it's more important for Philip Phillips to beat out Jessica Sanchez than deciding who would run the country. The main problem seems to come from the tactics used by politicians and the media. They are directed to emphasize low turnout messaging. This tends to demotivate people to have the notion that their vote doesn't matter, so why vote anyways? That's like telling someone, oh sure, I want to hear what you have to say, but I've already made up my mind on what the result is going to be, so talk away, blah blah blah. Studies have shown that making people feel more obligated to vote by encouraging high turnouts, personal accountabilities, discussing how they plan to vote can double or triple the amount of voters. And now we turn to our main subject for today. A look at the two main contenders for the highest seat in America, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. On the surface, it looks like no matter who wins, we're going to lose. But let us examine the candidates and see what's so good and so bad about them. We'll begin with Hillary Clinton, otherwise known as a bulldog wearing a pantsuit, or Robin Wright's inspiration for Claire Underwood. There are plenty of differing opinions about Mrs. Clinton, but let us start off by listing some positives about her in comparison to her opponent in this election. For starters, Clinton is the ex-Secretary of State, which is something that is extremely pleasing to the eye as a presidential candidate. She's very strong-willed and is determined to do whatever she can to help improve America. In addition, she has done humanitarian work in the past, and she is more widely accepted by the world compared to Donald Trump. So it's obvious that this old bulldog still has some tricks. However, there are plenty of bad things to note about Hillary as well. For one, her email scandals are something everyone in America is aware about, and that is why most of them are very reluctant to vote for her. Not only that, but she is a very private person and keeps things to herself rather than disclosing them to the American public. These are reasons that keep people from voting for Hillary in the first place, and I can understand how a person may be reluctant to vote for someone who is very wishy-washy in what they say to the public. Not only that, but she maintains ties with big businesses and doesn't seem like she would do whatever she could to assist the American public like her personality implies. Hillary Clinton, to the public, is the equivalent of a killer, as she has been so lovingly dubbed from the incident in Benghazi. However, by presidential standards, she's no different than most other presidents that have run the country in the past. The Bush administration faced several scandals, such as the events of 9/11 being allowed by the president and the Iraqi war having hidden intent to kill Saddam Hussein. The Obama administration made the promise to take our troops out of Afghanistan and to close Guantanamo Bay, but those promises have never been acted upon properly. So what's the difference between Hillary Clinton's administration and the administrations of the past? They're all the same kind of candy, but with different wrapping on each one. And with this, we move on to the Republican nominee for the presidential office, Donald Trump. A prime example of what happens when you let Scrooge McDuck apply spray tan and a bad hair weave instead of a top hat and a monocle. It is widely known that Donald Trump is a universally disliked candidate, but for the sake of simplicity and equal favor, we'll attempt to look for the needle in the haystack and find something good about Donald Trump to speak about. Donald Trump is not affiliated with any political party in terms of a political background. He's a businessman and has never had a position within the government to speak of. This makes him cut off from the political corruption that is very common in the American government, which is something good to think about when every American is making a conspiracy theory involving the American government and how aliens wrote the Declaration of Independence. Speaking of business, being a businessman makes him very familiar with the idea of cutting to the chase. He understands how a business is run and knows just how to tip the scales in his favor rather than being cautious with his steps. But we're speaking about Donald Trump. That grain of salt obviously came from a salt mine. So now let us examine some things we need to worry about regarding Donald Trump. Being a businessman, he is very unfamiliar with the political arena and is widely open to flaws and scandals. His business history hasn't even been very good, with Trump filing for bankruptcy several times and having several failed business endeavors under the Trump name. Not only this, but he is very unpopular with the American public. He has made several negative comments about women in the past, he is insincere with all of his exaggerated claims, and acts very unprofessionally in his speech and mannerisms for a man who is literally a toupee hair away from getting the Oval Office. Just this Monday, he released a statement about his confidence in getting the spot as president. He said, quote, "I think that I've got this election in the bag. Crooked Hillary Clinton doesn't stand a chance. If you look at history, I should be the president. Why shouldn't I? We're going to make America great again, or else Hillary will turn this great country into a wasteland," end quote. He never actually said that, but you believed me, didn't you? Because he says ridiculous things in an unprofessional tone that reminds you of a toddler claiming that their favorite toy for show and tell will be the best anyone has ever seen. Just you wait. It was easy for you to believe that Trump said something like that because of his over-the-top statements. So how will the world be affected once the results are in and America has its new president? Well, one of two things will happen at one of the most important places on earth, Walt Disney World. The Hall of Presidents attraction will finally have a female president to add to their ranks, or it will close entirely. But in all seriousness, when our new president is determined by the American public, I must say that we are all doomed. Don't have anything planned during Election Day, my fellow Americans, because there will be no America to speak of. I'm going to move to Canada. You're welcome to join me if you'd like, but that's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, and begin preparing for the apocalypse. You only have a few days left.